Okay, so apparently I discovered that my gallery had like 78 gigs worth of like, I don't know what, settings or something. Because all my video, like pictures and shit that I did not already manually delete are still saved. But I apparently just had a whole boatload of fucking like inaccessible data I had to go through and manually delete. 78 gigs. My phone is 125 gig hard drive. And it needed like 78 of those gigs were just random, unaccessible data or inaccessible data on my phone. Fucking retarded. So now I have a bunch of hard drives for this. So I am in the midst of climbing a hill. As you can tell, I'm still on my way out of Salt Lake City. You try to put this in with the other video I had. So where was it? Yeah. So like there's something to be argued. Like I'm really struggling, and I'm bad for that. Where again, a large part of me is like, oh man, I love trucks, I love trucking. Like, why would I want to do something else? And I get excited for like new shit, right? Like, a buddy of mine bought a 990, like a W990. And I rode around and I was like, fuck, I really like this. Like, maybe I should buy a 990, right? My dad's all fucking, yeah, you should get a 990. Fuck, it'd be great. So my dad really likes like new technology. He's one of the few truckers I've come across that's been trucking for 30 years that isn't like, I need a 359 with a damn Dana fucking Spicer fucking 8 and a 4 or whatever, 6 and 4 fucking trip. It was shit after that unless it's a 379. And my dad doesn't fucking care. But mind you, he's not like, I think my dad, like, he drives truck because he can't do anything else. He doesn't drive truck because he's like super passionate about trucks. At least not anymore. He's like me. He likes the job. He likes driving trucks. He likes the independence, but he doesn't necessarily like everything about the job to the point where, some of these guys are just, I mean, there's something wrong with guys out here being super, like, so passionate about the job that, they don't have a home or never live at home. Like, we got guys where I work that when they're at home and have to do a reset, they're in their truck in the yard. Like, they don't actually have a home to go to, right? So, there is, I mean, I personally don't want to do that, but there's not anything inherently wrong with that. But again, there's a large part of it that's like, yeah, I want to have a life. I want to be able to get out of running all these miles all the time, right? And realistically, the only way to do that is to get out of a truck payment. Right? So there's, again, a couple ways to do that. The best way to do it that I can come up with is to just keep this truck, right? Hunker down, pay it off, keep it, and, from basically this point on, I only have 2 years left of payments on it, and then it's bought and paid for. The problem with that is one that this might end up being a fucking vent about my old man. My dad helped me with a lot of the building and buying process on this truck. And one of the big problems my dad has is this idea in his head that, like, he's never going to stop driving truck, right? So to him, like, he expects to flip his truck every 2 years. Because he's just going to keep making truck payments for the rest of his life. He doesn't care. So when we bought this truck, he specifically requested that we do not get extended warranty on it. I wanted it, and he told me, like, no, you don't need it, right? Well, so now the truck is out of warranty. And as kind of evidence, like, the truck can't run forever on fucking grease jobs and oil changes alone, right? Shit fails. The truck, right now my truck loses air. It's not in the brakes or anything. It's out of the bags because I've got airbags on every fucking axle on this thing. And I've noticed that my compressor, like, it keeps up fine as I'm going down the road, but when it's empty, it takes a while to fill up, right? Because again, it's 3 years old, and it's because the fucking air ride on this, especially the front axle, like, the bags are fucking terrible. Everybody goes on and on about getting an air ride front axle, and it's nothing but fucking problems. my compressor runs a lot more than it probably needs to, probably should, right? So I imagine it's getting fucking tired, and I'm probably gonna have to replace it. Well, I don't have the money to replace it, right? Trucking has become such a what's the word for it? There's an expression for it. Like you're running, you know, your profit margin is ridiculously low, right? So you don't have, like, I don't have the cash set aside to replace, you know, whatever the fuck it is, a $3,000 to $5,000 compressor right now, right? And for most maintenance, right, most maintenance situations are not financeable situations. Again, I'm lucky right now that the company I work for has a full shop, and they have no problem doing work on the truck and then just billing me, like taking money off of my pay. But like, you know, I can't always, like, you know, at this point, like, I'm going to start slowly ending up always having to get work done to the truck. Like I'll always be in a phase or in a state of paying the company back, right? So there's the alternative of sell the truck, get a new truck, get extended warranty, and tell my dad to fuck off because he wants nothing to do with the next truck I buy anyways. And then that truck is fully covered under warranty for the entire duration of the payment period, right? That's the big one. Right? It is not fun to come up with anywhere from $3,000 to fucking $20,000 while you're making a truck payment, right? And that's where, like you said, my dad set it up, and that's why I'm kind of, you know, I kind of lean back towards it, even though my dad, you know, again, his mind, like his opinion about what I should do changes too, right? Is I'm kind of at the point where I think I'm going to have to trade the, like, sell the truck, right? Flip it for a new one. And just deal with another, you know, at least 5 years of what I'm doing, because again, I don't know that this I mean, how do I put it? Like this truck will last as long as I maintain it, but I don't think this truck will last another 2 years without requiring a significant financial investment, right? Especially not now that I run a lot of miles, right? It basically, when I, like, since I started where I'm at now, I've almost doubled my kilometers on the truck, right? I've put on probably about 150,000 kilometers already, and I've only been here since, when did we come here? Fucking October or September, right? Running back and forth to California almost nonstop. Well, just the West Coast is a lot of miles, right? Now again, that's not a lot of miles. Like, I've only put on maybe like 70 or 80,000 miles, kilometers, you know. So this truck, you know, again, if I stay here, probably before the next 2 years are up, the truck's going to need a rebuild, or it's going to be even close to it, right? And again, I don't think new motors aren't like an old cat where it'll run for 1.7 million miles before it needs a fucking rebuild. I'm sure this motor will last maybe 1.7 million kilometers, but at this rate, I'll be at 1 million by the time, you know, I mean, I'll probably be at 1 million by the time the fucking, no, not quite 1 million. I don't know. I said, I honestly don't know. Like, but it's still a case of, like I said, do I buy one more truck? Because again, right now, like I said, I'm not in that position where I have a bought and paid for truck that I can just do, you know, short haul, or like I said, there's a buddy of my dad's, and he's got a float, he's got two or three end dumps, and a couple of flatbeds. And he just runs like swamp mats and some gravel, like, you know, you get a little bit of mix, right? You hook up to the gravel trailer one day and just run a bunch of gravel as you got nothing better to do. You know, there's you could do that, and then again, you're making, you know, let's say 75%. So you end up making maybe, I don't know how much they make per load on gravel, but, you know, my paycheck's at 23% for $600 or $700 a week. It's supposed to be around $1,000. So at 75%, your pay would be, you know, around $3,000 a week, give or take. Right? So you take your taxes out of that, and you're making, you know, maybe $2,000 a week, which again is better than a company guy, but certainly not what I'm making right now. Right? Like right now, I'm making around $5,000 before taxes a week. So really, at the end of it, I'm making like three or four. then fuel, you pay for your own fuel on top of that. So your full take home for that would probably end up being about $1,000, $1,500, give or take. But he only runs within the province of Ontario, and you're home. There's the odd time you spend a night on in the truck, right? When we run up to like North Bay or something like that, right? We run fucking, because I worked there for a couple of months as a company guy. You run for, you know, North Bay, again, it's 4 or 5 hours away. Like, you go a bit north of North Bay, but because of the legal, you know, your legal job, like, if you started at the shipper and loaded and left, right, you could get up there and get most of the way back in one day, but you can't quite get all the way back in one day. So you end up kind of, you know, going, you'd start, you go there, you deliver, you spend the night kind of, you know, I'd head back to North Bay, spend the night, get back down, grab another one, right, spend that night at home, go out, deliver, and then you go home for the weekend. You know, with that place, I was never home, or I was never on the road for the weekend, right? And you don't, like, I had to do some silly things with logbooks there, because they were on or paper logs still. This is before the e-log mandate. And, I mean, I think technically e-logs are still only, they're not mandatory yet in Canada, so, they're, you know, he doesn't enter the States, doesn't have to have an e-log. There was a couple times where you'd run all day and sleep in the yard for 3 or 4 hours and then do like a midnight run into the city to work with the swamp mat crew. Like, they'd be moving a piece of machinery and they'd have to put mats across the road so they don't destroy the road. So you fucking, you know, they got a set of B trains, we'd split it, and me and one other guy would run half, like, you know, one of the trailers each into the city, just because you're tight and fucking shitty. Get the thing delivered, get the mats offloaded, move the piece of equipment, then they'd reload the mats and go back up to back home with them. But then by that time it's 3 or 4 in the morning. Well, then most of the time the boss is like, yeah, you know what, just go home and sleep, take the day off. And other times, like, well, we kind of, do you think you can run this? So then you'd, like I said, you'd be up all day, you'd sleep for 2 or 3 hours, be up all night, sleep for an hour or two, and then go back to work again for the day. As a company guy, it's a little harder for me to say no, right? If I show up there's no operators, like, no, I'm not doing that, I'm going home, right? So, and again, it basically means that I'm in a retirement gig very early on in my life. But like I said, I don't think, the unfortunate reality is I don't think it's going to be with this truck. Not unless I come up with a large influx of cash that gives me a nest egg. Like I said, if I win the lottery tomorrow, and even if it's, you know, like 20 or 30 grand, right? Well, I mean, my parents would fucking bitch me to put it in, get a fucking mortgage. My dad would probably try to get me to fucking buy him shit with it. You know, then, but like if I you know, came into, you know, $40,000 or $50,000, let's say, then yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, I'll keep the truck, because you put, you know, 30 grand into a new home or whatever, you know, whatever basically the minimum I'll need to get a mortgage. And then the rest you just put into the truck maintenance funds. You keep working here until the payments are done, with that money in the bank just in case. And then once the payments are, once the truck's paid for, then you just fucking take it easy, and have a house to take it easy in. But I don't see me coming into $50,000 anytime soon, or, you know, any significant amount of money, right? I know my stepmother was left quite a bit of money, but she hasn't received it yet. She had a family member pass away, and she was, I think it's a cousin of hers, and the cousin, I guess, I don't know the full details, but the cousin, her and this particular cousin, are like, it's a distant relative, were like very close friends when they were kids, and I guess the woman who passed away didn't really have a whole lot of friends or family. Like, she was single with no kids when she passed away, so she had nobody to leave any money to. The only person left was her father. Her father is, you know, he's in a home with I was about to say autism, and then I was going to say Asperger's, but it's the other A, it's Alzheimer's. So the clause effectively states that her, you know, the money she left, which is a tidy sum. It's not, you know, it's not fucking, you know, Longfellow Deeds making $40 billion or whatever. It's, you know, I think it's a little over $1 million. But the money goes to her, you know, the deceased woman's father's care until he passes away, and then my stepmom inherits basically the entirety of the rest. There was one other, what do we want to call it? There's one other person on there, but the person has been unreachable. Like nobody, like the legal team can't contact this person. So if they fail to contact it, the entirety of the sum goes to my stepmom, and I think the split was majority to my stepmom anyways. So like again, in theory, within the next few years, she'll come in with considerable amount of money. But that's not my money, that's her money, right? You know, my stepmom has pretty much expressly stated that all the kids are going to benefit from it. You know, but again, I have no idea what her and my father's relationship will be like in a couple of years, right? They're exceptionally, they're a very good match, but I can tell, like, he stresses her out a lot over money. My dad is a very, very, like, I was going to word it wrong. My dad is he's extremely bad with money. My dad, like I shouldn't say he's bad with money. It's a weird thing with my dad, right? He's good at strategizing. He understands things like investments and mortgages and the economy and the housing market, but he's had this devil-may-care attitude with things, right? Like his whole life, and again, part of it is because he was 22 when he had his first child, which is me. So he never got to experience, having an adult income without adult responsibilities. Like that's what I have now, right? I've got an above-average adult income with no adult responsibilities, other than ones that I put on myself, like owning a home or a car or whatever. So as a result, like I do have more free income than my father does. But I shouldn't say that. I mean, now again, because I'm self-sufficient for the most part, like he doesn't, but he, like, all of his income is free income now too. But, he didn't get that when he was younger. So, and he's flat out stated, like, like to just buy stuff. Like, if I can't afford it, they take it away. Big fucking deal. I'll find a way to get something else again, right? And his mindset has always been, like, somebody will sell you what you want. Like, you can destroy your fucking credit and have multiple bankruptcies, and somebody will fucking give you money. And, like, he's not wrong. But he's also, like, that's not the right way to live life. Because if you just, somebody will give you money, that's how you end up paying 20% interest on a car. Or, I had to do it for a while where I bought a car, and, like, I had to pay for it. Like, it was a buy here, pay here. But they placed a tracking device and an immobilizer in the car. So if I missed one payment without, like if I couldn't make a payment, I called them in advance and organized it. It was fine. They were not super nice about it, but they would do it. But if I missed a payment, car's immobilized, they come take it back. Like, there was absolutely no chill with it. It was because I let my dad buy stuff in my name and he destroyed my fucking credit. What was I going to say? So again, it's a case of, like, my dad has quite a bit because our income is, again, he owns and operates his own truck too. Like, him and I get things because our income is high, not because our credit is good. And that gets risky because even though your credit can easily go bad, which it did, the second you stop making that high income, you can't afford anything anymore. You can't afford the things you currently have. And unlike my father, I get attached to things that I own, right? Like, I almost cried when I sold my Mustang, right? And I traded it for a pickup. Like, it's not like I lost it or anything. I technically traded up when it comes to cost and, like, vehicle for your dollar. But I was really attached to that Mustang. I'd had it for 2 years. It was the first brand new vehicle I had ever owned in my entire life. Right? I was 30 years old. I guess 29 when I bought that. 30. And I bought my first new vehicle, and it was a Mustang. Right? And it was the EcoBoost, but it was loaded. Like, it had almost everything that the EcoBoost model could give you at the time. right? I think, I can't remember if you needed, at the time, you had to have a V8 to get like the all digital dash and everything, but you know, and it was fast, it fucking looked good, it was fun to drive. But you know, again, driving in the winter with it, especially once I moved into my own place, you know, it became very difficult once you realize like there are certain things that just won't fit in that fucking car. So I wanted something with more room, and I originally looked at like a Subaru Forester, or I wanted an Outback. They're expensive, but like a Forester or something like that. Again, all-wheel drive, decent vehicle, good on gas. But my dad is a diehard Ford man, and he basically like all but demanded our local Ford dealership get me a truck, and, you know, get me into a truck. So that's what they did, but my payment went up by almost $200, well, a little over $200 a month. But I mean, again, it's a the fuck is this stupid model? It is a, now I can't remember now. It's an XLT. Doesn't have the FX4 package. I got a sport. It's a sport. I think it's a sport package. So it comes with like body colored bumpers. It's got a console shifter instead of one on the tree. You know, it's got neat little fucking tire marks in the seats. Like it's a great truck. It's full 4-door. I get the smaller EcoBoost, but it's still a 2.7 liter V6. Like it's, again, for what I use the truck for, it's great. And I have a pickup bed, so I have room for everything that I want. But again, I was very attached to that Mustang. I'm not actually that attached to my pickup, right? Maybe it's again because I've driven plenty of pickups over the years. None of them have ever been mine, but they were like the vehicle I used. So there's that kind of weird, you know. Again, I think it's maybe just because the Mustang was new, right? It was my first new vehicle, so it's always gonna. It felt like my car, where pickup is like, you know, Daniel just needed a car type of thing. Like again, it kind of feels like when I buy a used vehicle, like it was. You know, it is also, yeah, because the Mustang was exactly the car I wanted. I didn't get it built. They found one at another dealership, but it was, like I said, I want this, like these features on this car. And, you know, I gave him like a couple of different color options that I wanted. And, you know, he found me one that was what I wanted, right? Where the pickup was, you know, I hadn't really looked at pickups. Like it was, you know, it's not poorly equipped by any stretch, but it was not like you know, this is when we got on the lot, you want it? Like it wasn't a case of like I picked exactly what I wanted and they either built it or found it for me, right? It was a case of like, here's the list we got on the lot, like, you know, you want one of them? So I guess there's that. And again, mine, I've got nav, I've got, you know, all the other things. I never use the nav, like it's kind of a silly feature for me to have because I don't use it. But, you know, again, it is what it is. It's there, so it's fine. But you know, again, you're kind of a, you know, I gotta clean it. I gotta fucking. It's just because I moved. It's full of fucking stuff still. Like I'm almost using it as storage. But like again, because I got a big 4-door vehicle, like it's so easy for like, you know, I got like newspaper and stuff like on the floor. And, like it's not the truck's not like dirty. It's just clutter. There's not garbage in it. It's just, you know, some boxes and stuff like that. It's like fucking, I want to clean the truck out. I get fucking discouraged because I have nowhere to put half the stuff that I pull out of it. But again, that pickup, because of my poor credit, that pickup truck cost me almost $1,000 a month. Like it's like $848 or something like that. So I need to make a bare minimum of $1,000 a month after my $3,800 truck payment or $3,900 truck payment. It's $3,850 something. So I need to make the absolute bare minimum right now, for those two things, not even counting stuff like my cell phone and everything else. I have to make a bare minimum of just a hair under $5,000 a month, right? Again, doing this job, it's doable. Like I'm fine on track to make sure my truck payment and everything's paid, but you know, it gets tricky to come up with more, right? To do other things, because again, the industry has kind of started to get into a point where the profit margins are super thin, and I think you'll see within the next couple of years, maybe a decade or so, like owner operators will be completely phased out. You know, we're getting to a point in the industry where there are still pockets of trucking that pay exceptionally well, and can make you a good amount of money. Like in case of like cattle hauling, right? Bull hauling is right now still possible. It's still possible to make good money. I said I've got a buddy of mine that he makes usually anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 a week hauling cattle. But he's up today. He'll leave tonight and he'll run. Like you don't stop. You do not stop when you haul cattle. Like he drinks more fucking coffee. Like he's 76% coffee instead of water. And I mean, I guess he's never said if he takes any little happy trucker pills. I mean, again, the stereotype with bull haulers is that they do, but I can see that. Yeah, that's probably the case. Like I met up with him at the Iowa 80. He'd driven all day. He stopped there for 2 hours. Well, then he had to get to, like he was going to be like we had dinner at like 6 or 7. His delivery was going to be at like 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning was when he was going to get there. And then they were going to offload him at like 4 or 5 in the morning. So he gets there, maybe it's 2 or 3 hours. Well, then he's got to reload at 10 o'clock in the morning and deliver for fucking, like, what the hell was he at? Fucking midnight that fucking night. Like, you don't stop as a bull hauler, right? They run in paper logs and they fake their logs at the ass. But that is the only way to do that job, right? Because you have livestock on the trailer. You cannot afford, like, the livestock can die from you sitting parked somewhere, right? Like, they're, I didn't realize like most bull racks have heaters and everything in them, but the cows need to be let out for food, they need to be let out for water. Like, the part of bull hauling is the stopping for the animals, not stopping for yourself. So there's no chance for you to stop for 10 straight hours in one spot with the cattle in the trailer to go to sleep, right? So bull hauling is the one industry that could stand to be devastated by mandated e-logs, right? When it was first brought up, lawmakers basically said, hire a second driver. All bull haulers will have to run team. Well, again, it's a very frustrating scenario, and it's happened for a lot of different things across the years. But trucking, most notably, I think, is a problem because I guess trucking and the housing market, but trucking more specifically because there usually isn't there hasn't been much legislation that's passed that has forced homeowners to buy new homes, right? In trucking, there's been attempts at legislation. Sorry, I'm digging for a water bottle. But the end result was, like owner operators, for example, will have to purchase new trucks, right? Again, California's EPA compliance stuff was a big one. Well, if you want to, obviously now truckers will have to purchase new trucks, right? And again, it's never like they never. How do I word this? I'm sure they, lawmakers think about the fact that not everybody's going to be able to afford to buy a new truck, but they deal with it in large scale numbers, right? Well, unfortunately, yeah, a few people will lose their jobs or go out of business, but it's better for everyone as a whole. And most truckers will purchase new trucks or find ways to adapt. The problem is the adaptation process is more often than not, at least in the trucking industry, like really devastating on truckers. And again, in a Supreme Court or in whatever courts across North America, like where these types of laws and regulations get put into place, the number of truck drivers is listed as a number, and that's it. But to the individual drivers that can't, if they were to mandate it tomorrow, then all drivers must have, all trucks must get a minimum of 10 miles per gallon. Well, then only slope-nosed trucks are legal on the roads. I would have to immediately drop this truck and buy a new one. And the problem is that this truck wouldn't get any money because it's not legally allowed to drive anymore. So I would have to buy a new truck while still making payments on this truck, right? And and I would have to buy the new truck with absolutely zero down. I'd have to come up with my own money to pay for it. So I would go to business. I would lose everything, right? That's just straight up. And again, for the lawmakers and the general public, I suppose, I mean, I don't matter, right? Like, who am I? But to me, obviously, well, my life is over, right? So again, the issue with sweeping legal action or reform, again, in the truck, I'm like, this is, specific. I'm using the trucking industry as a reference, but I think this applies to a fair number of things, especially careers. You have to, to make an omelet, you got to break a couple eggs, and that statement is easy for people to make when you're not the egg getting broken, but those individual eggs, they're done, right? So again, like there's, I don't know, it can get scary at times, right? And again, it's the same with this kind of, with the way the profit margins and stuff are going. Like I said, we're going to get to a point where most companies right now are not making that much money per truck, right? But most companies, because they buy trucks in bulk, they get large discounts. So, this truck was $185,000 for me when I bought it at the time. If, for Scott Lynn, for example, who buys 389s, in the, like, by at least several dozen in a year, it ends up being, I don't know, fucking probably about 160. What the fuck, dude? Okay, this Butler's gonna fucking.
You know what the hell you're doing up there or what?
If anybody missed that, the ramp there, it's the kind of the northbound bypass around Salt Lake. Because right there's the split. You can take 84 south and end up, or north, sorry, and end up in Ogden. Or I don't even know if it's 84 south or north to get to Ogden. 84 south can put you around Provo or just south of Provo. So that spot always gets kind of sketchy because the trucks come on and we're all immediately climbing a hill after a sharp curve. So everybody, right, nobody really wants to slow down because everybody wants to make sure that they can climb this fucking hill, right? But everybody's got to find a way to get those trucks merged. So I guess what Butler was doing, he moved in the left lane, but then saw that a car was coming up, and I guess he didn't want to, I'm assuming anyways, it looked like he didn't want to block the car. So he went back right. Well, then that forces the fucking guy on the shoulder, or the guy merging, to just fucking sit there. And again, because there's a truck behind him, if he slows down, the guy behind him's either going to slow down or end up next to him. And one guy's going to end up on the fucking shoulder. So, like, Butler hit the brakes, but that's what he's hitting the radio. Like, you know what you're doing? So when I drove by him, he just looks at me like, he kind of points to the guy in front of him. I was like, what's the deal, right? Fuck, I don't know. I'm already in the far left lane, giving them all the room they need. Like, you know what I mean? He's not giving me shit or anything. It's just, again, it's. But Butler's like adjusting shit on his fucking phone. Like, his phone's on the dash and he's hitting buttons on it or something. So he wasn't fully paying attention when that situation arose. Probably doesn't have the experience to just immediately kind of come up with a strategy. Like, again, well, it's not even a case of experience. So I brought this up before. Like, I'm running into, as an owner-operator, like, I'm starting to run into a lot of situations where, like, I'm standing there with 3 people at a fucking table, or 4 or 5, whatever, doesn't matter, the fucking trucker bar. And the old guys are talking to me like I'm one of the old guys. And then the other guy that comes in, right, and you can just tell by his mannerisms, they treat him like a rookie. And when we all find out how long everyone's been driving, the old guys are obviously 20, 30 years. I say 4, their fucking jaws drop, because the fucking rookie says he's been driving for fucking 9. Right? And again, I mean, there's big differences. Obviously, again, I'm a son of a trucker. I'm grown up around trucks. But I also think a lot of it is personality. Like, even though I'm a little jaded on the job right now, like, I still, like, the job itself is still enjoyable. I still enjoy trucking, right? And I enjoy maneuvering trucks and figuring out like how to, like I mean, again, where I load it, right? You pull in and it's a car parking lot for the property. So there's cars parked around all the outside perimeter. Like it's basically a big rectangle. So you pull in at the bottom end of the rectangle. The doors are at the top end of the rectangle, and the entire perimeter is cars. Well, there's also a car parking lot in the center. So you have to loop around, go past the doors, and then there's a spot they've got marked off. This is no car parking. And I guess when I showed up, they said they load at 3 p.m. They're in the midst of a shift change, or at like 3:30 is a shift change. So a lot of people, employees, their rides have shown up. Well, none of them have anywhere to park, so they're all parked in the no parking space, right? So I pull up, I go inside, I check in with the lady. She takes my look. She's like, I gotta go tell them to move. It's like, I mean, I would appreciate it. It's like they're not supposed to be there. Everybody in parks knows they're not supposed to be there, because it's the same people picking up their fucking spouses or siblings or whatever every day. So she goes, tells him to move, but one guy's asleep, so he doesn't wake up. So same thing, I take it as wide as I can. I try to go and I can't make it, so I knock on his door, politely ask him to move, and it's 50-50 how he's going to react, and he kind of smiles sheepishly. He's like, oh, sorry. It's like, no, you're good. Like, even if you just pull straight ahead, you'll still be in the no parking area, but like you're past where my trailer's going to come in. So he pulls out of the way, and I fucking linger in there. So again, it was an interesting little reverse. And I've had a couple of spots working here where like I look on like Google Maps, and holy fuck, this is going to be interesting. And I got to find a way to get into the dock, and it's like 9 times out of 10 it's fun, right? Because it's a pleasant challenge that's not. It's only when you're being rushed by other people that it becomes a stressful situation, right? Otherwise, it's just, no, we're gonna look, okay, we're good. Do a little more, okay, good, look. Getting back to the yard is the only other time it really gets stressful. Mostly because you want to go home, right? So you get to the yard. Like the last trip I did, I got back to the yard. It was already dark out. It was late. I'd been driving for fucking 12 hours already, or like 11, because we're legally allowed 13 in Canada. So I get to the yard. I gotta swipe or scan my driver's license to get in. And I've already, like, as soon as I pull in the entrance, I can already see there's no parking spaces, but there's nowhere to turn around. So I have to scan, get in, find a way to turn around, because our company's yard is very small. Scan my driver's license again to get the door open to leave. Go to our auxiliary parking lot, which is like around the corner. Scan to get in again, and the same thing. Except there's really no, like, there's a couple of open spots, but the yard is super tight. So it's the same thing. I'm like, fuck. Right? And I know they've got cameras. They specifically point out, like, we usually fucking watch everybody back in to kind of take bets on what's going to happen. Luckily, again, it's late, so nobody's in the office, but it's all recorded. But it's the same thing. Like, I don't have a choice. And the yard is so narrow, like, once I drove in, you cannot, unless you back into a spot, you cannot turn around. Right? Like, it's actually, I don't know what they ever do in a situation where if a guy drives into the drop yard and discovers there's no spaces, you have to back out onto the road and find a way to, like, get the trailer to turn into the road, so you don't just back into a fucking parking, or I think it's a driveway on the other side, or a curb, or a fucking sidewalk or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a stupid fucking idea. But there were no spots where, like, there's 2 spots next to each other that are empty and make it a little easier. So I had to be, like, real close or like gentle, and get out a bunch of times and look, because our trucks are not really. Most of the trucks in the company are sloped hood with setback axles, and they're, the wheelbase is a lot shorter. They're a lot more maneuverable. But, I got it in there. It takes time, and it wasn't. Once I get into that mindset, like, I got to do it, it's not stressful. But if there've been, like, I've gone there a few times, there's been more room, but there's other drivers there. Like, I had one guy get out and start watching for me, like, dude, fuck off, like. And I don't say that, right? This guy told me I was good, and I just ignored him, more or less. But, like, I don't again, I realize he's trying to be helpful and friendly, but, like, I get into a mindset, like, I don't want people fucking watching me do this shit, right? I want to be left alone. So, but he was, again, I just ignored him, got in there, and then we just shot the shit for a minute. But like, there are a lot of guys that get into this line of work, and it's just they think it's just going to be an easy job, right? It's you know, fucking listen to my tunes all day and hold a steering wheel. Fuck, I do that when I commute to my fucking job at McDonald's right now. Why not? So there are a lot of guys that just doesn't matter what you do. You can, you know, it's the guys that will park in the fuel aisle, and when someone pounds on the door and gives them shit, they get told to fuck off, right? It's guys that just don't fucking care. So it's hard to, you know, it's hard to kind of deal with that shit sometimes. It's not hard to deal with that shit from a level of, you know, like there really isn't anything you can do about it. It's hard as somebody that tries to be professional at this job. It's really hard to, like, you know, I imagine it's like anybody at a place where, like, you know, you work at a McDonald's, for example, and like most of the staff like takes pride in their work and does their job and tries their best, and you've got like, you know, one or like 2 or 3 people that just don't give a fuck. Like they genuinely don't, right? And the problem is that, you know, every time the fucking manager comes in and the sink is full of dishes because, you know, it's the lazy, dirty Dan's job to fucking clean the dishes, and he doesn't. Well, the manager goes and gives the entire group shit for the dishes not being done. It's a team effort, guys. You got to do it, right? Or the customers start complaining, oh, the fucking floors, none of the tables are swept, or, you know, sat or cleaned or whatever, right? And so again, it means that the people that actually are passionate about the job have to, I mean, again, in the service industry, it's almost worse because then they have to do extra to compensate for the lazy employee, at least until the lazy employee like finally gets, you know, somebody finally realizes what that lazy employee's like, and like the manager finally learns what's going on, sees it for themselves, and fires them. But in trucking, I can't deliver more loads to make up for somebody not delivering a load. You know what I mean? Like I can't drive better than I already drive. Like I can't drive extra good to make up for one guy that doesn't use his mirrors, right? But a guy that doesn't use his mirrors, or a guy that constantly, you know, is on his cell phone and gets seen doing it, or like we have at the company now, like guys that constantly fucking speed, right? And the entire company gets punished, right? And again, when it comes to stuff like that guy way back there, like the industry can get punished, right? Because people in cars see all these fucking trucks doing shit, and it's difficult when you're not an experienced truck driver. It's in a situation like that, it can be difficult to ascertain like who fucked up, right? Again, like as the drivers, it's pretty easy to see like Butler fucked up. He was already in the left lane. He should have stayed there. The car will just have to fucking deal with it. Like I'm gonna get behind the car. It's gonna be shitty. It's gonna be tight for a second. But that way, the 2 guys that are merging, they get on, and we work it out, right? Either we're all gonna just fucking take both lanes up the hill because the guys on the right don't want to, you know, sacrifice any momentum, or we pull ahead and get back in the right lane. Like, you know, you do what you gotta do. Or I in the left lane might have said fuck it, slowed down and got behind the guys. Fucking flatbed that passed me earlier, that was the guy that got in next to me and, you know, gave me a look like, what the fuck's this idiot in front of us doing, right? So, and he waved at me as I went by, right? So like, you make it work. But again, it's that situation, right? Like the guy in the flatbed and myself know what we're doing. I don't know about the guy in the front, but, you know, it's the Butler truck, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. So he doesn't know where to go or what to do when a situation like that arises. And again, that one wasn't too bad. Like we're all going slow enough because of the turn and then the hill, but it's not like the lane's ending right now and the guy's got to come over at 70 miles an hour. It's like, okay, like we're going slow enough that, you know, we'll find a way to fucking everybody fit in. But it's just, you know, you're kind of, it's indicative of a lack of paying attention, or a lack of how do I word it? Like the guy has clearly not put enough time into his craft, right? Because trucking is, I mean, it's unskilled labor, but you know, it is a craft per se, right? Like the more you do it, the better you are at it, and you do have to put in, you know, some time and like put thought into the job. You have to be, you know, and again, it's like I equate it, because most of my life has been trucking. I guess factory work too, right? Like I could do my factory job without really paying attention to what I was doing. I'd be daydreaming or whatever when you load the parts in here. The worst that's going to happen is the machine doesn't spin around and start welding properly because the part's not in the right spot, or makes a part wrong, and you scrap a piece of metal, and it kind of sucks, but that's it, right? In this job, people can die, people can get hurt, right? So you don't want to just not pay attention, right? You have to be, and like, I mean, when I say not pay attention, I mean I'm talking to a camera while I film myself driving right now, right? So whether, like, regardless of what some guys might say to argue it, my attention is divided, right? I'm looking at the road, but I'm still thinking about things other than what's in front of me. Like, you don't have to be that, laser beam focused on the driving, but you do have to you do have to pay attention to getting better. You have to put effort into getting better. And again, you get to a point where, a lot of stuff is kind of second nature. Again, like in that situation back there, the second I saw the trucks coming, I looked in my left mirrors without thinking about it to see that there's no vehicles next to me, so I'm free to move over. Well, there was a car next to me, but as soon as he got clear of me, like, there's nothing behind him. So I could move over, no problem, right? But like for a lot of guys, well, when they see the truck, then they got to think about what they're going to fucking do, right? And again, well, there's a car there, and again, the car was behind the guy, and he changed his mind and was most of the way over, and then changed his mind and went back into the right because he doesn't know, where should I be? What am I going to do? Well, it's like, the car's already slowed down, right? The guy in the car, maybe the car will be mad at you, give you the fucking finger or something, but it's better that than one or two trucks running off the fucking road because you didn't move over. Like, it's the same thing. Well, if the car decides he's gonna fuck with you, the rest of us are gonna fuck with him. Like, you know what I mean? You got at least 3 people that witnessed you try to help the drivers out, and the car decides he's gonna start brake checking you. Well, we're gonna penalty box the car and make his fucking life suck for a little while. So it's drivers still, for the most part, will work together on shit like that, especially if a guy, did something for you. But you said he didn't have the experience, I guess, to just be doing those things without really thinking about it. And that's just it, right? Like a lot of stuff that comes out of me. Like, I don't think about when I check my gauges every once in a while or check my mirrors. Like, I just do it, right? I don't have to tell myself to do it at this point. And that's, again, it's because I've put the effort into drilling it into my head to do it. So I don't, so now I get to a point where I don't have to, I can only, I can dedicate, say, like 60% of my brain power to driving the truck, and my brain automatically does everything it's supposed to do, rather than having to dedicate like 90 or 95% of my, my thought process or brain power. I mean, that's kind of a, I'm examining, like, I'm oversimplifying. There's a case to be made that, like, some people haven't, like, if you learn the craft and concentrate and get good at the craft, I guess early, you get to a point where, again, it's the same thing. Like, I'm a master craftsman in anything, and I'm no fucking master. I will say that right now. Like, a master, like, sculptor, like, can get to a point where if he's making, like, unless he does one-offs every time, if somebody, like, say, makes, I don't know, that famous bust, I can never remember the name of the person who the bust is, the armless lady, right? People make those all the time. Well, there's a lot of people now that can make them pretty much in their fucking sleep, right? So the quality of work is the same, but the person doesn't have to dedicate as much concentration to that job. And it's the same thing with this, right? Like, I'm at a point now where I can, at the very least, look at the road while I talk to a phone, right? I still wouldn't, like, for a while I was doing live streams, and I can do them during the day. At night I gotta dim my phone down so much that I can't read comments, and I shouldn't be reading comments. So I almost completely stopped live streaming. I throw one up every once in a while just to, just again, especially like the American Truck Simulator groups, because all those kids love seeing the truck. But again, it's just I don't know how you put it. It's a case of experience, and again, I think that's the difference where most guys that I come across, don't realize that I'm a brand new truck driver, because I've kind of, I guess, front-loaded my learning or my experience of driving a truck, right? Again, I very quickly got into owner operating, and I've been driving 389s and like, I mean, I guess the W9 every once in a while, since like from the 6-month point of my CDL, and I learned how to drive a truck in a W9. So my experience with these trucks, like these types of trucks, which would be regarded as like, you know, you shouldn't buy this kind of truck until you're, or drive this kind of truck until you're an experienced driver, right? I got to a point where, like, because I learned in these, I can drive them no problem. I'm more comfortable driving a truck like this than I am driving, you know, a slope nose truck. I know how we're, like, I know that my opinion in the center of the hood, basically as soon as it's on or just slightly to the left of the solid line, I'm pretty center in the lane, right? You know, I have a pretty good idea of where the end of my hood is, right? I don't run into shit with the hood. When I drive, the few times I've driven like slope hood trucks, I don't. It's harder to maintain the lane, like, because you don't have just an easy marker. You know, you don't put the dot on the line to fucking be in the lane. You're kind of floating all over the place. It's like driving a cavalry. And I find like it's actually harder to gauge where the front of your hood is because, again, for me, I know basically that pinion and I can see where it slopes off. It's just straight down. That's the front of the truck, right? On a slope hood, it curves, and the grill and the bumper are ahead of the point where you can no longer see them, right, or see past the curve of the truck. So what you get, like I said, is that you don't actually really know where the front of your truck is. Where with this truck, I know where the front of my truck is. And I mean, W9s are the same way. It's a flat wall at the fucking, you know, I know that I keep forgetting the name of the W9 logo. It's a tire. It's a tire or some shit. But either way, like, you know, I know where the front of that is, right? I know where the end of my truck is. Yeah, see, now that we're up the hill here, it's slightly below freezing. But again, like that. I mean, that's all. Like, again, some of it's experience in general. A lot of it is the fact that, you know, again, I started driving truck in W9s and 389s. But again, fuck, he's already had the shift. That sounded like he's fucking running his Jakes. Or is that thing just loud as fuck? Christ. So again, for a lot of people, like, yeah, like, I've been, I mean, fuck, when I first worked at Scotland, and again, at that point, I only had, like, I think at the time I did that particular load that, like, this particular story's from, I'd only been there for, well, like, 2 months. So I had, like, at most 8 months of trucking experience, right? So I was picking up a load in Georgia, and I'm lined up, and it wasn't a bad spot, right? The docks are all in the back, so you go down along the building. The doors would then be against the building wall, so you make a right turn to get around the back of the building where the doors are, but then the doors are on your right. So what everyone would do is you get down to that end of the building, you make a left, and then just back straight up so all the doors are on your left, and just kind of curve into the parking spots, right? So I get down there. There's a guy. He just got a call ahead of me, so he goes in and he goes to back up, and I start lining up, and he comes out. I'm trying to remember the exact what he said because I'm trying to remember why he came over me. I think he was asking like if he wanted me to spot him, or if holy fuck, if I wanted him to spot me. And I mean, I've always been like, if a guy comes up and asks if I want to spot, like, my response is always sure. Yeah, sure. Right? I mean, again, it's not going to hurt to have somebody watching. You know, when I'm in a shitty mood, I don't like people just getting out and doing it, because it's the same thing. Like, oh, then they fucking wander around behind me or something. Like, if they come over and ask, then absolutely. Right? And then he said, yeah, I mean, not that you really need it. When you truck like that, you probably know what you're doing. It's like, no. I mean, it's not a bad backup, but, you know, I've only been doing this for 8 months. He's like, what the fuck? It's like, if they trust you with that, I said, I own it, or I lease it. I always was pretty specific on pointing out that I'm a lease purchase guy. Like, I did not hold any, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't lying to myself. But again, you know, the way my knowledge base, the truck I drive, the way I carry myself and the way I interact with people at truck stops doesn't scream rookie, right? I think people can tell. Like I think I look older than my age, but I don't look that old, right? So I think a lot of people can tell just by my age that I can't have been trucking for more than 10 years or so, right? But again, in this industry, typically, if you've been driving for less than 10 years, you're still considered a new driver, right? So I'm very, very much a new driver. Again, I mean, new drivers typically get very little respect and all that shit. And that's, you know, you could argue that's part of paying your dues, but again, it's easy to like blanket disrespect people based on like an arbitrary number or an arbitrary standard you've set, when, you know, that driver might be new, but he might be very knowledgeable. Where guys that again been doing this for 20 years are fucking idiots. Like, I mean, I tend to look at things on a per person basis, right? I've met rookie drivers that are pretty smart. I've met experienced guys that are pretty dumb. I ran into one guy once who I was hauling tanker, so I had to back in next to where all the trucks, like I was in a dock, but it's like, you know, so there's 3 or 4 docks next to me. It was a tight place. Like, I'm on the far outside, so everyone's got to try to cut in inside of me, and I'm on the outside of their trailer. Like, I'm in their blind spot as they back in. So I really didn't like the fact that I had to sit there for fucking like 6 hours pumping off fucking chocolate. But I'm in there. I'm getting set up. While I'm getting set up, another truck comes in, and he's having a fuck of a time backing up. Right, like he can't fucking do it. And again, it's partly because that particular like dock, you go, the doors are on the left, right? There's not a huge like there's I don't know, it's the equivalent of a 2-lane road, like the width of from the yellow line to the white line in front of the trailers. Oh yeah, no way. So you don't have a lot of room to cut away and then left to kind of get your trailer pointed towards your door. And as you go past the docks, there's like the road dead ends right in front of you. So there's actually not a lot of room to. Again, I forget what it is I've uploaded. I've explained it before, I think, where if I don't have a lot of room away like in front of the trailers at a dock, I will start my right and left, and I'm sure there's somebody has a name for that fucking hook kind of maneuver. I'll start it later, so the trailer axle, it's more like the trailer is already in front of the opening before I start moving away and then left again, rather than just right at the window or roughly the drives like you would do, you know, in a normal situation. So the guy, again, nobody taught him anything. I found that out pretty quickly. So he was driving straight up past the door and then tried to jackknife in, and of course he couldn't fucking do it, right? So like I'm watching him, he's fucking struggling, and I'm like he's doing it while I'm setting my stuff up. So like I can't really go over and help him right yet. But by the time like the pumps are running and I basically have to sit there and twiddle my thumbs, he was still struggling. Like he got in there like just as we were getting the pump running and everything. So once we had and again I make it sound like he was there for fucking hours. He was there for like 10 minutes trying to get in or something. So once I knew I didn't have to watch my shit anymore, I walk up to the front. He's got the window open, and it's a younger guy, and he looks at me and he's kind of shaking his head, and I think he figured I was gonna come out and give him shit or chirp him or no, you best not hit my truck. And he's like, man, I've only been out here for like 2 weeks, man. I was CDL like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, holy fuck. Like he was mad at himself. Like he was stressed out. And I get the same thing, right? I don't think he can believe that some company fucking sent him out only having a CDL for 2 fucking weeks. But there are companies out there that don't actually do training. They'll take a guy who just got a CDL and fucking throw him in a truck. Right? Again, that was a benefit for me because I wouldn't be able to handle fucking running a team with somebody or running with somebody else in the truck. But for most people, again, that's not a good thing. So I walked him through, taught him how to back up. Right, and one of the big ones I showed him where to go and where to cut his wheels. And what I did is I got him to go right and then left, and then when he was far enough left, I got him to stop. I said, okay, come on out for a sec. So you put her in park, it's an automatic, it fucking gets out, and look. So now you see where, like, how your trailer's pointed towards the door. And again, because he didn't quite realize, he's like, yeah, but I gotta go the one door closer to this one. I said, that's fine. Like, all the doors in front, like, to my left are open, like 3 doors open, right? It's just he couldn't get the trailer to fucking hook in without hitting my hood, right? So I said, that's fine, right? As long as now, because you've got that room, right? Right now, as your truck backs straight up, you're gonna put more of a, like, the trailer's going to twist more and more into the parking space, right? So when you chase it in, even if you're not in front of the right spot, then it's, once you're in there, it's a lot easier to just pull ahead and side shift than it is to try to make it in one shot. So I do it, back in, pull ahead, side shift, get in the door, right? He thanked me, and that's what we talked a little bit. That's what he said, like, I think it was 2.5 weeks or something he was driving. And not even sitting out of truck driving school, or out of like a mentorship program. That was 2.5 weeks after, like, basically out of truck driving school. He just got a CDL, right? So the guy had no idea. But again, he was willing to accept help, and he listened. Like, he was not, like, again, I always hate the, well, you listened to what I said, so it was good. It's like, well, no, like, I'm not the fucking expert either, but he was willing to learn and willing to kind of put a little bit of thought into what he had to do, and he got it in there, right? And I hope that he learned that technique and he uses it from now on. Because again, I know a lot of places either aren't showing it or are actively training a much worse technique for getting into the pop. But again, it's a case of, like, some new guys are okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Even guys that don't have, like, the kind of advantages that I have, right? It's just they're people that are willing to learn, right? Regardless of what they're learning. But there are some guys that just aren't. And again, I remember watching once, and I think I've talked about this in a previous video before, a long time ago. I had a load of watermelons I delivered once to a real shithole in Toronto, and I fucking hated it. But the one thing I will say is, almost all the drivers there that were coming in, were Indian guys, right? Again, it's Toronto, like Brampton area, and it's 90, like, I think it's 55 or 65% of the Ontario trucking industry is Indian owned now. Again, there was a time in my life where I really hated that, and again, I spent, again, I made friends with an Indian guy, and worked in the last place I worked at was for his father. Again, it's an Indian guy, so you'll learn a lot more about, like, what those guys are dealing with when they come here. And I learned, even my dad, because my dad's always been very, and racist isn't the right word, because it is and it isn't, right? You don't, like, my dad and I aren't sitting there hating Indian people. We're sitting there hating Indian truckers because, again, we're thinking they're just lazy. But there's a lot of issues with education and like, proper orientation within, like, the North American trucking industry that they're not getting. So we get over there, and finally after fucking 12 hours get a door. So it's super tight, and you got to back in the thoroughfare that everyone's got to take to go by to get to the scale. So there's trucks just constantly pouring into place, right? There were 70 or 80 trucks in this parking lot. There's only 4 doors, right? So it's just a fucking zoo. So I got to sit and wait for the guy, like, in front of me. He gets the door that's going to be to my left. So as I start to pull up, he gets out of his truck and says, hey, like, do you want me to spot you? I said, sure. So he spots me in, and then him and I both go to the next guy and ask him, same thing, another Indian guy. Same thing, right? Kind of like me, like, kind of relieves the Japanese, because he didn't have, he just had, me and the guy to my left, we both had at least one spot to our right that we could, if we screwed up, we weren't going to hit anything. But he had the wall, so he had a bit of a harder time. So we guide him in, no big deal. So then the guy to the left of me leaves, and the next guy comes in, and it's an older white dude. So same thing, we all kind of go, hey, do you want a spot? And no, what do I need a spot for? Like, he said, no, I'm fine, right? And he couldn't get it in. He could not back it in. Eventually what they did is one of the warehouse guys had to come out and back it in, and the warehouse guy was not gentle with his truck. I'll give the warehouse guy credit. I genuinely thought, given the attitude, or the attitudes of everybody in that compound, I half expected him to take the guy next to him's hood off and not fucking care, right? Because then that would be between the trucks, and the drivers of the trucks and not him. But he just settled for fucking just about destroying the fucking transmission on the guy's truck. Backed him in, and then he hit back. It's like, if you had accepted our offer to guide you in, we would have got you in there. Instead, you let some fucking random stranger, fucking roughhouse your truck. It's like, all right, man. It's, the things we refuse to sacrifice for pride. Okay, can I want to lower the brightness on the phone. There we go. So again, there's, that was when I first started, kind of looking at Indian truckers a little differently. I was like, you know what? The one thing I will say is that none of these guys are too fucking proud to refuse to work together, right? And that's what, we all did. We basically just, while we were getting loaded, we're fucking helping everybody else get back in the doors. Me and two other people, and that's all we did, right? We shot the shit for a little bit, and then, except once we got our loads, or once we were empty, we fucking all took off, no big deal. So again, there are lots of people out there that are maybe not necessarily the most experienced, or are stereotypically considered to be poor drivers, that are they put genuine effort into what they're doing. But there are a lot of people that just don't give a fuck, and that's a big problem. And again, in an industry where a slip up can, cost you or somebody else their life, you can't really be like that, right? I will eventually have to start paying attention here because, well, not paying attention, but I'll eventually have to probably let the cruise off because it's now -4 Celsius compared to 12 degrees at the bottom of the hill. So, and now, I'm in Wyoming now, so it's going to be, I might get into some slick patches of road one day. But right now, everything's dry. I don't think it's snowed in the last day or two, so I suspect the roads will be dry until at least probably Rock Springs. That's where, going west, Rock Springs was where the weather got nicer. From Laramie to Rock Springs was just a shit show. So we'll see what it's like on the way back. I'm not gonna do that tonight. I don't know whether I want to get to Rock Springs or I don't know if there's a town. There's a truck stop at the 40-mile mark, but it's also that's only 5:40. It'll be 6:30ish when I get there. So the restaurant should still be open at least. Yeah, just to figure out where I'm gonna stop for the night. I kind of figured, even though, I kind of fucked up today, right? I stayed up late, which was what I wanted to do. I woke up, and then, I got bored, so I took a nap, and I ended up napping for, 2.5 hours. So, I'm wide awake, but I hate driving at night so fucking much, right? And if I drive all night and get to St. Laramie, I'm not going to find a parking spot, right? Rock Springs is at roughly the 100-mile mark in Wyoming, so I'm basically 90 miles away, so an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But again, it's a place where the truck stop will fill up. So you kind of sit there and wonder, do I want to risk driving that late? Because by the time I get there, it'll be 7, 8 o'clock local time. Where right now, pulling into the one truck stop I'm thinking about, first off, the truck stop is so enormous that there's always parking. But secondly, it's like I said, it'll be 6:30 local time when I get there, so that's not as bad. Okay, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go all the way to the right, or are you just gonna stay in the middle? See, I fucking hate this too. Hartley's gonna stay in the fucking middle because he thinks he's going fast enough to not need to fucking go in the slow lane, so then I'm sitting here fighting over. I said it's always, I'm realizing, because now I'm spending a lot of time out here, hills are the worst, right? When you're going down the highway, for the most part, you typically, when it comes to trucks, you come across 3 kind of different archetypes, right? There will be guys that are driving, slow, anywhere 65 mile an hour or less, mostly because they're governed. So you pass them. If you're going fast with 65, you pass them. You got guys like me that are doing 70-ish, like they'll do the speed limit or a little less, depending on what the speed limit is. Like out here, it's fucking 80 or so. I'm not doing fucking 80 mile an hour. And then you got guys that are doing 80, 90 mile an hour, right? And that's pretty much it. So, you know, right, when you realize, when you know what you are, you know where you're going to end up most of the time, right? I probably have the worst because I pass and am passed fairly regularly, where the 65 or slower guys, occasionally they got to try to get around somebody, but most of the time they're the slowest ones on the interstate, so they don't have to worry about it as much. And the guys that are going 80, 90, the fucking, again, the bullhaulers and shit, they're half the time they're in the left lane because they're even passing cars, right? But I'm in that spot where I pass people, but I'm also getting past them fairly. However, when it comes to hills, everything kind of goes out the window because then it comes down to weight and horsepower, right? I mean, momentum carries into it a bit, but with a lot of these long pulls, like, you know, the momentum you had, you're gonna, you know, it might affect, you know, you might be able to fucking go a mile or two an hour faster going up the hill, but that's about it. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, it ends up being like, you know, again, a weight and horsepower type of scenario. And everybody gets all over the fucking place, right? So again, what you get is like back there, right? The Swift guy, he knows the second he fucking starts climbing that hill, he's gonna be fucked. So he immediately puts his four-ways on, and the second, like he was already on the shoulder, so the second that right lane for the hill opens up, he's in it. The guy next to him doesn't know what the fuck he's gonna do. So he, like I said, he started in the middle, got around Swift, and eventually moved over to the right. Because I know I'm still fairly light, I was in the left. Well, then, like I said, there was a Kenworth behind me, the bobtail that went by. Now, again, he was decent enough to not just decide to fucking blow by me in the middle, but guys will do that because they're empty or light, or again, they're bobtailing. So they can go up the fucking hill at whatever speed they've been driving at, right? So there again, suddenly the differences in speed and the different, like how do I word it? The differences in speed, overall speed, is way higher, and there are a much higher, a larger number of different speed limits being used, right? So again, you get a case of like, for me, again, they're very frustrated because I don't like losing momentum if I don't need to, right? I mean, I'll crawl up the hill, but I don't, you know, especially if I'm lighter, if I'm empty, I don't like have to hit the brakes and sit at, say, 30 miles an hour behind a guy when I know my truck will go up this hill at 65, right? Because I couldn't move over in time and I'm stuck because all the cars are going too fast, or, you know, if I'm in California, because fucking CHP fucking literally drives into the side of my truck until I fucking go into the right lane. Like, you know, it's very frustrating. And again, it's the same on the downhill slope. What you run into is like, I'll pass a bunch of trucks going uphill, and then they'll all blow by me going downhill. And then if it was just a hill and you get to the center, like where it levels out, it's fine. But, you know, here in Iowa, I find is really bad because Iowa's a lot of rolling hills. You can end up just fucking around with somebody for like fucking an hour. Like, you'll pass them going uphill, they'll pass you going downhill, and then there's the next uphill. So you're gonna go around them again, right? Because again, like, it's a little different if like their uphill speed is say 65 and their downhill speed is like 70 or 75. Because then, yeah, like I'll do 65 up the hill if it means that he'll just slowly get away from me. But when you got a guy that his uphill speed is 35 and his downhill speed is 80, well then, like, you're either, like, I either have to fucking floor it and go flying down the fucking mountain, or, you know, basically fucking drive half the speed of snails making love if I want to just stay behind him. Right? Because there's a lot of guys that just puts to the floor, whether they're going up or downhill, they don't fucking care. Right? So again, the term was always a dragonfly. You drag up the hill and you fly down. Again, it's kind of there's nothing I can do. Like, I can't stop people from doing that, right? I can't. There's no way for me to. I mean, I guess I can run people off the road, but that, you know, that's first off not legal. Secondly, you know, probably not very fucking nice. Because what they're doing isn't so fucking terrible that they deserve that. Right? So again, it's just something you gotta deal with sometimes, right? Again, Wyoming's not like Iowa's worse because just literally from one end of the state to the other is just rolling hills. So they're never like they're fairly like they're not very tall, but they're all fairly steep, right? We're out here like, you know, there's a lot of just big mountains. Like I gotta climb up to the top of this fucking basically a basin or a valley that I'm in. So this hill doesn't look incredibly steep, but it's very long. Right, so yeah, like I'm gonna end up probably dropping down to fucking 7 something, going up this hill with my 4-ways on. And like I said, there'll be, and again, it's long enough that it's 3 lanes. Iowa, because the hills are all short, there's still only 2 lanes up all of them. So like, you know, if God forbid you fucking end up slowing down, you're gonna stay slow until you get over the hill. And then, like I said,